Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. We're continuing this adventure, aren't we?
Yep, we had to.
We have too much to say about education. I mean,
We
all
do.
you got to do is poke me a little bit and I apparently go off.
And I feel like I have a list of an entire year's worth of discussion regarding the educational system.
All right, listeners, so we'll pick up the conversation here with Tina discussing Seth Godin's Linchpin ideas about systems.
Last part in here that he's getting to that he's like segueing now into, and this is the part of the marketing for business.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this is true. AI, all these things coming on, even podcasting he was talking about on a thing where it's going to shift now to where we're going to need more people to people contact. Like that's going to be the new thing. Like we've gone into all this media and social, and so now in his book it's getting more into the emotional quotient.
Okay, hang on. So here's what I'm going to say, though. If he's saying we need more social and more emotional intelligence, we've been talking about this forever. That's what education is.
Yes,
Kids,
but again, the system isn't allowing the time for it, or they'll say
The
pack
system,
it in
right.
the already 7 months that we have to do 9 months of
right, we
curriculum.
understand that. I mean, as educators, they keep piling stuff on you, and it's even more so that now. But one of those things that you got to do, and we're talking about the kid who comes back from recess, and they've got an issue they've got to deal with. Whether it's a big one or a small one, doesn't matter. They're still hooked into that, and there's validity in that. And you're out on doing yard duty. Don't tell me that you're not out there teaching kids how to get along, how to figure out the rules of the game, how to include people, how to manage when someone gets hurt physically or emotionally. Those things happen all the time. And if you don't send your kid to public school, they're not getting an emotional education. They're not getting a social emotional education. They're not getting that, what do they call it? What did you call it? The Q?
The emotional quotient.
The emotional quotient. They're not getting that because they're all isolated and if you're all online only, that's not real.
But we still need more time, and I saw that whittling away.
Oh yeah.
They would say put it in, and then they wouldn't back it.
Of course.
Things get dropped. So that's another thing. We get into this thing because it's said do it from the top down, and then all of a sudden it's done, and so we throw it away and move on to the next thing. And you've invested all this time
and money and effort and everything else. Yeah.
So
and then one more thing to do, and one more thing to do, and one more thing to do. Yeah.
It's like we're being yanked by a choke collar into these different directions, and then we come to this place of acceptance. We're going to do it, give it 100, and then we're yanked and it's dropped and pulled away from us.
Yeah.
And we don't get a say.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a definition of a cog.
I like that.
When I listened to, I read a little bit of the links you sent me and so forth, and just the attack. I feel very defensive when I feel attack on public school education. Not that individual bits of information are not legitimate, and behind it all, there has to be this idea of public school education. I mean, those founding thoughts that I'm telling you about, that is dynamic. You've got to keep changing with the times, and it needs to be founded in research and with teacher knowledge, with practical knowledge too. And you've got to keep the kids at the focus. You want to get, I mean, that's just the reality. I'm going to get defensive because everything's blamed on teachers. I mean, everything,
No,
and even more and more
no,
and more so. And I gotta not take it so personally as an individual teacher, but people bring that to the school and they attack and treat
I
teachers
agree.
in that
I
way.
agree.
And that's been increasingly emboldened in our society where
Yes,
it
I
used,
agree.
I think we used
There's
to,
no respect. It's
yeah.
dying. It's getting
And
worse.
we
I
used to
agree.
say, okay, education, the system of education needs revamping. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Disagree. No.
And
Except the people on top who don't know better. But yeah.
I don't think people would disagree. It's the same thing as saying, our political society needs to be revamped. Yes, it does. I mean, there's so many things that need revamping, and we've got to have a robust system where that is the culture that you embrace. That we're going to continually work towards making this better, and we're going to do this in ways that are planned and logical and research
And
based.
research based. And I agree. So I'm going to end with this quote. Great teachers are precious. Lousy teachers cause damage that lasts forever. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I'm feeling defensive right away.
Oh, see, I'm not because you were never a lousy
Yeah,
teacher.
but so put into that quote the few lousy teachers that we come across in our, yeah, okay, I just feel very defensive because we don't do that to other professions. We don't go in and talk about that lousy nurse or the lousy doctor. We might talk about a single individual. I don't know. It feels like an attack. Go ahead, start it over again.
Okay. Well, let me continue to the next. We need to reorganize our schools to free the great teachers from tests and reports and busy work and to expel the lousy teachers. I know this sounds like a pipe dream, but why should it be? When schools were organized to produce laborers, lousy teachers were exactly what we needed. Now, lousy teachers are dangerous. Don't blame the teachers. Blame the corporate system that is still training compliant workers who test well. See, that doesn't upset me at all. I think he's exactly right. Let the great teachers do the great teaching. But I feel that we have been whittled down to showing up in April to show what it is we have forced our children to learn to make it fit to a test. And it's not us that's we're being destroyed by a system that says this is the new way to do it.
I
And
feel like there's like by calling out lousy teachers, it makes it sound like it's a free will to label a lot of teachers as lousy teachers.
see,
And
and I
and
don't
and
see that. I don't see that there's that many lousy teachers, but I agree, Sue, that the ones that I have seen and experienced myself, they should not have been teachers. And they did harm me. And they did affect my world and way of thinking. And they shouldn't be there. And I think that was one of the hardest things that I went back to where it sealed the deal is going up here and being forced to teach with dittos, copies, from a workbook because you couldn't afford to give kids workbooks. So I'm still making photocopies of an outdated workbook. And the whole system up here felt that that was a respectable, decent way of teaching a foreign language. And they were upset with me because I didn't want to follow the prescribed route that was dated, boring, statistically losing everybody. And so I look at it's the system that is saying you have to pass these tests, and the only way we can see that you do it is to follow what it is you've been given.
well,
And
it's
that's what I'm trying to say. And that does produce lousy teachers because they're following like cogs in a system instead of standing up and saying this isn't okay, which I tried to do. But you can't change sometimes a system that's been there for decades.
right. So
And that's
that.
the problem.
I would restate that then is there is
A
a
lousy
lousy
system.
system that allows for teaching, not teachers, teaching that does not teach, teaching that is served like a meal. It's a teaching that is a cog. So I don't think it should be the teachers. That quote really hits me because that's how our greater society is viewing it. They're attacking teachers.
Yeah,
And
instead of the
it's not the
system.
teachers, it's the system. Are there lousy ones in there? Yeah, there's always going to be lousy people in there who who, if they weren't a cog, could they teach? No, they wouldn't be there though, because they wouldn't have been hired, because they're not
Right.
teachers. Okay, there are bad teachers in there I understand that.
Or
My point
mean.
in this quote, though, is saying teachers, because it further disempowers teachers. It makes teachers the blame, the scapegoat of education. I call bullshit on that. I think it's the system that requires teachers to be that way, or
Yeah.
ignores actual teaching. Those people that you're talking about that are just cogs and are da da da, they're not teachers. They are truly just cogs.
They are
And
humans
so,
placed in a classroom with a
right,
label.
right.
Yeah.
And I would not call them teachers then. So it's abhorrent to me to use that, because it is further scapegoating individual teachers that are so under attack. So that's my take
And
on it.
and and then one last thing that's part of the cog of our educational system. Back in the day, we used to have cafeteria workers that would get up, go to work in a kitchen, and would be slicing and dicing and cooking and creating a meal to be put in a tray that was food. Now, it's a truck that backs up full of hamburger patties wrapped in plastic that are microwaved in the plastic and served and considered lunch, and canned fruits. And that in itself is another part of factory production. Do you think the guy that's driving that truck has any joy picking up his prefabbed food, backing it in? The cafeteria worker has no creativity in making a meal anymore.
They're
Who
not a
has to
cook.
take,
Yeah.
what's that?
They're not
They
a
no
cook.
longer, right, they're
They
not
are,
cooks.
yeah.
They're
So that's why
plastic
that's like the
wrapper
teacher. That's
heaters.
like the teacher thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the
It's just
parallel.
another
Mm-hmm.
example of the
Mm-hmm.
whole system.
Yep.
And let me just say for the record, too, another disturbing fact at this last situation I was in. I I had a first period class, and I had students come in with their free breakfasts. And here's our government who says, we need to eat better. We need da 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 da. And I'm looking at these kids, and it's like a chocolate muffin with chocolate chips with chocolate milk. It's all sugar. And I said to them, you can't, you can bring in some healthy food, but I'm not going to let you sit here and just eat junk. And they're like, well, this is what they have at the cafeteria. And lo and behold, they were right. And here's our government that preaches we need to end obesity and we need to cut out sugars. And yet they're the very people that are spending the money to support, again, this system, this cog. And for the record, outdoor education. This is another sickness. I want the world to know this and reveal it. You bring all your sixth graders from all over the United States, right, to these outdoor camps, at least in California, the one we went to, every child had to take a cup of milk. Had to, by law. And it was like a check mark. There was someone there to monitor it. Do you know how many people don't drink milk? And so gallons were being poured into the trash can. So here's the whole milk industry. We're over milking these cows to throw it away because of a law, because of a cog, because no one is questioning. You just follow the rules because that's the way it is. And that's the point I'm making. It's systemic, and it's not fitting with the way society is changing now. We are uncogging. We don't have factories in the same way, but we have to change people's way of looking at jobs and move with society, because we can't keep doing this system within a system that isn't even that.
I would agree, and I think my point is really valid, that we need to refocus this. And as an educator, I am especially aware of this. I would hope that this author, Seth
Godin.
Godin, would understand that by using the word teachers, that you are further scapegoating. It's that same example you gave of the other cogs that are out there. It's so volatile, though, the word teacher. You go and say the cafeteria lady or the cook. That's not a big thing going on in the world culture, in our
Mm-hmm.
country's culture. It needs to be
Mm-hmm.
looked at the system, the educational system. And when our public school education requires us to have kids take a milk and then throw it away and make use of that, um, or receive those chocolate cupcake brownies for breakfast, that is so wrong. If you want to do your maha on us, don't cut school lunches and school breakfasts. Kids are
Yeah,
hungry.
they
You
are
need
hungry.
to, instead of
Nourish them.
change the system so that those are real food, and real food that people eat, and get our world back to, eating real food. I mean, we're
Okay,
talking so many issues here
the
today.
thing that came up for me right now is, and just prior, right, to the beginning of the school year, they were giving all the teachers and staff breakfast. Now, did our breakfasts, I think there were pastries for sure, but we had scrambled eggs, sausages, fresh fruit. Why are we not serving that to our children?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because they have to have the brain power and the nourishment to learn.
Hmm. Exactly.
But we'll pay that money, which goes back to your funding. We'll pay that money for the adults who could have eaten at home, by the way. We didn't need to have that expensive, fancy breakfast. It was a treat, it was a gift, but we could have eaten that at home, where these kids may not get that at home. Every teacher could afford to eat that good food at home and make that choice, but many of our kids cannot. So that money should have been invested into their breakfast because they're our clients.
Yes. There's a part of
Okay.
me that still wants to push back on that. Not every teacher can go home and do that. Not every teacher at the end of the month has money for that bacon or the sausage or whatever. They don't. Or I mean, they might eat a
More
piece of
so
bread.
than the parents who are working for
Right.
minimum
They
wage
might.
behind the scenes at a
I'm
restaurant.
not arguing that. I'm just saying, in addition to that, the teachers are not paid correctly so that they can, by the end of the month, afford that sausage or that egg. They might be eating bread that day or rice or beans, because I know colleagues that do that. And that's the reality. So I would add that in there. That's all about the funding. We need to put our money where our mouth is. If we care about our kids, we care about our society and moving forward and being prepared to enter the workforce at all the different levels that it requires, then we need to
Yeah.
be behind kids and those that are educating our kids, and that system that is educating our
Thank you.
kids. Tina, I like that we can hash it out. Even though you had to be patient with me, and I had to be patient with some of the thoughts on that. I'm glad that we can do that.
Me too. I love it.
Okay. Did I get too much in your face?
Oh, not at all. I thought it was great. And I think that's one of the things I've always loved about you is you get very passionate.
Yes.
But Sue, that I love that.
I
I
have to
love
say,
that.
to
It's so
feel,
real.
I felt riled.
But it's so real. And you always help me open up my mind to another way of thinking. I mean, I've told you this so many times. You have made my mind. You made me think about things I had never seen before. That's maybe why you're such an excellent teacher,
You're,
because you are able to open up my mind, at least, and I'm sure so many others, to a different way of looking at it. It's like, it's not fun to sit there and have someone who's always thinking the way you think. Like, we agree. I think this is what makes the magic. I think our hearts are in the same place.
yeah,
We see things differently and how to get there, but our hearts, our values are right there.
I agree. I agree.
And that's what makes this so beautiful and magical.
I appreciate that, and it's true. I think that, so when I get riled, it's like a bullet in me that says, that it's touched a nerve. There's something going on. I get so riled and I got so many thoughts and I'm going so many different directions. It takes me a while to figure out what it is. And in this case it was the fact that
System.
the word teachers, because it's really personal and it's really volatile right now in the world right now. Everything is blamed on those
Yeah.
families, 30 families walking through
Yeah.
that door on that first day of school.
Yeah.
And there are already a number who've got a backpack full of stuff that are going to attack you.
You're right.
And
With parents to support it and nurture
I'm
it.
talking about the parents. And they walk
Oh,
through
that's the backpack.
the 30 families. So it's the kid and their parents and their extended family and everything else. And I think it's worse now than it
I think
was.
you're right. I
It's
think it's out of
increasingly
control.
worse and
I
worse
agree.
to the point where when you say teacher, when you go out into the public in the world and you say you're a teacher, that's not a good thing anymore.
Yeah, I think
It
that's
used to
true.
be. It used to be it used to be something that was respected, was
Respected.
valued. They'd feel compassion for. Oh, that's a lot. That's
Yep.
a hard job. Um, I'm not saying you need to venerate people, teachers like gods or anything. Never have said that. Never felt that. But to understand when your kids walk through that door, they're our responsibility. They're our responsibility to take care of their safety, their emotional safety, their and by the way, to facilitate their learning. And the expectations there, it comes with you're supposed to acquire this and this and this and this knowledge along the way, and knowing that every child in that classroom is very different, even
Yeah.
after all those years, 25 years times at least 30 students, because there were many years that you taught different groups of kids from different classrooms. That's so many kids. And even with that, they're still individual. Each one comes with their own
Yes.
little package. And
Yes.
we endeavor to serve that child and help them
With that
to protect their
pre-given
safety, their
package.
emotional, their
Yep.
physical, and then to provide opportunities for them to learn and well, to facilitate that learning. It's an awesome responsibility.
It is.
And if you come in attacking me,
Yeah.
that's not going to be you come in thinking the
You're
worst
right.
of me or that you're a lousy teacher, you're one of those lousy teachers.
Right.
I remember one year they came in and when they asked when they're placing kids for that school year, they would say things like I would like there's only two teachers, for example, that teaching
Yes.
that grade level. I'd like a male teacher, and I'd like and you're like, hold it, the two of us, neither one is male, and that can't be changed. So why are you putting that on
Dialing up
paper
an
for
imaginary thing.
me to hear? There's something behind
Wait,
that.
what do you mean to hear? How did you
Well, the notes are given, and you get placement, and then you're told these are the things for placement notes, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, it's
Wow.
crazy. I'd like a veteran teacher. I'd like a new teacher. I'd like they can put in all they want, and it's like we didn't ask for a wish list. We asked you if there's some urgent reason why your child should be placed in one placement or the other. You know, like
Right. Like the other teacher was blind and my child's blind and I think it would be a good fit for my blind child.
well,
That's something.
that's that naturally happened. I used to get a lot of the Spanish speaking, not that just the
Right.
kids, but the families, so it made it a lot
Yeah.
easier. But then there might be
Correct.
issues like, for example, I had students who were twins. So, you could say, this year I think it's a good idea for them to be
Split.
separated because they need to grow some autonomy. That is a really important and valid information to provide in placing kids in classrooms. But to say you got to be a
Dial
certain
up a
gender
teacher.
or you're new or that's ridiculous. It should be about your child and your child's needs. This year they were with their best friend such and so. It's the third year in the row they've been together. Really, they should be separated so they can start. That's the same. That's the kind of thing you want to know so you can help that kid learn. And what are the parents' goals behind that? Not that they get to choose your gender. It's ridiculous. I'm so defensive. Even now, I can just feel it all because you've been put in this place of disempowerment for so long. And I know those teachers out there are still battling with
You're
this,
right.
but at a deeper level. And we're being scapegoated. Teachers are being
Instead of the
scapegoated.
system
Yeah.
that's put the teachers in this precarious spot.
Or allowed for people who are, like you're saying, who are just cogs, who are just there not
Yeah.
to be a real teacher. They're just there to
Fill the
fulfill
space and get the
of the cog.
paycheck.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with them. That's what,
Yes, it is, but they
well,
should
hang
be
on.
the ones that are
No, no,
handling our
no. I would
humans.
say if if this system allows for that, that's the problem. If the person comes in and they're just being a cog and they're being a good cog, they're not causing any individual, they're not doing anything illegal or anything wrong. There's a problem that they get through. That cog goes through. That kind of teacher gets through, and there's a system in place for releasing them from that job.
Yes.
That
But the system
it's
has
the
given you the
system.
cog. Right.
Right. The system shouldn't be handing out cogs.
Right.
Unless that's what they want, which is what your
Which
guys
is what I
which is
think
what
that's
your
what
guys
they
arguing,
want.
right.
Yes.
But that's
to
a
keep
cog.
people working within the industrialized system.
That's a cog. Let's
you don't
call them
question,
cogs.
You don't think. You
Yes.
don't. Right.
And
that's
you can't blame the teacher.
Yeah. And that's where it goes back to where you're right. We can't get rid of public education. We have to have education in place, because if not, then we will all be in the dark. Then, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's about being able to understand a contract and sign it. We have to know what it is
and if you're modernizing, your concern is, you're according to what you're saying, is that this guy should be teaching more about money management, and all these things. I agree.
To create solutions to problems instead of memorizing things or learning a high level of math. We need people to think.
Here's the thing.
We need people to think.
Yes. Okay. So in my whole experience,
you were
as a
always
teacher,
a thinker. That's why I adored you.
Hang on. In my experience as a teacher, the United States does more to create individual thinkers, problem solvers. That's one of our skills as Americans, as American students. We are not a society where you sit there and just rote study everything. You can look at other societies that do that, and there's value in it. I remember when I went to, granted, this was a while ago, but I went to Ukraine. They don't have all the books. They don't have all the materials. Those kids could memorize amazing things. You would say, go home and memorize. They would go home, be told, memorize this lesson, come back and recite it. And they did. So is that great? Maybe if that child was going to use that information in the future sometime, yes.
Right.
But they also were able to hold all this knowledge in their head at one time. Tell me that's not useful as you're fighting a war against Putin, that you're out on the front and being able to memorize this, that, and that location and all the things. Oh my God, memorization is important. We get blamed in the United States for our kids not knowing their math skills. That's friggin' rote. And other, we send kids to Kumon math where they have to just rote. Those come from other societies. There's value in rote education for certain skills.
I agree.
And for developing that part of your brain so that when you go to the profession you're doing, whether it's like I was doing wine, my viticulture and enology, and you had to memorize massive amounts of information about the viticulture and the history, the tastes and the regions and the climate, and put all this together so that it makes sense. You need that brain that allows you to memorize what skills you have. I'll tell you, as a senior citizen, this thing of memorizing, it becomes really important. As a senior citizen, your memory starts to go. And you've got to, if you don't have the rigor to make your brain do exercise, you're losing out. And you're going to, and studies show you lose it a lot faster too. If you don't practice it, it's going to be gone. So you don't do rote just for rote. However, again, if it's the worst thing that happens is all you got out of it was practicing how to memorize, then there's nothing wrong with that. If your whole education is down to just rote, that's a problem, because that's not real life. You've got to be the thinker. You've got to apply the things.
So example. history? Is it that important to know the exact date of when treaties were signed or when this
Sometimes.
particular government took over? Let's, have
Rarely.
an idea of what
Hmm.
century,
Hmm.
right? You should
Hmm.
know the century, but you don't need to know on March 22nd, 1812 or whatever it
Hmm.
is. I also feel that where, again, it's lost. I'm so with you on the skill, but now let's take it for we've got this kid and he loves the way machines work. He knows he wants to be a mechanic. He looks at every car, he wants to tear it all apart.
And
So,
memorize all the parts. Yes.
so my point is, let him learn that skill through something that's meaningful, that's going to help him in his life. But memorizing the history of 1812 happening in this particular country at this time is not helpful for him when he knows he's going to be a mechanic. Nor should he have to take Algebra 2 and graduate knowing he's going to be a mechanic. Let him free.
So many of
Let
these
him free. Let
men,
him free.
many of these girls will don't necessarily know what they want to be.
True.
Some students
That's a
do,
problem too.
and that's
That's
see. This
true.
is the thing is some kids really do know, and you don't know
That's
this as
true.
a teacher or as a parent. You have to be a teacher and a parent to come together and go, yeah,
That's
this kid
true.
really does know their stuff, and this is where the direction where they want to go. When you shut off uh, certain parts of education to kids too early,
Yeah.
that's a loss. You are not
Yeah.
opening a door, you're slamming a
Good
door
point.
behind them. So there's
Good
got
point.
again, this comes back to everyone is individual and you've got to figure out things that work
Good
for all
point.
of them. And she will be able to do what she wants to do as she gets older because she's got these skills, she's got this background of knowledge and depth, and she can and to talk about, I did this with my students. We talk about we're memorizing now. What's the value in memorizing? What things do you know to have? What things do
God.
you have to memorize? Why? And how do you memorize? Like some of us aren't very good at it. So what tips can we get from you? I'm not a great memorizer. And I would tell my kids this as I struggled with my multiplication tables and memorizing them. But I've got them now because, here you put in your hard work, you've got to discuss this stuff. If you don't, then it's a loss. But so there's this balance between slamming doors behind people and opening doors, between killing their
You're so
souls
true.
killing
So
their
true. Yes.
souls
Yes. Yes.
and
Correct.
and feeding their souls.
Yes.
I've got
But there's not time in the day anymore to allow for the feeding of the soul. That's where it's been cut out
again,
down to the
system
minutes.
needs to be changed. System needs to be changed. It needs to be based on education.
And for the record, as you talked about this cog lesson that you're already jumping in, like I'm salivating. And then here you are talking about the reasons for memorization. Already, I'm like hooked under your spell. You are a teacher. And that is why I think you feel this attack. And
I
this is where
do.
I look at you and say, this is why I wanted to continue teaching. And you gave me this spark and hope and light. And it's so funny. I'm 57 almost. And I'm sitting listening to you. And already I'm like, I want to take your class. I don't know what it is you're teaching, but can I get there?
Well, thank you, Tina. You're very generous on that. Not everyone feels the same way, but I have to say, I feel because I felt so attacked and I listened to,
Oh,
I know that that's what our teachers, my friends, my colleagues, and all the other teachers are feeling. They walk
yeah.
into their classroom with a joy and a love for learning, for teaching, for caring about kids, and they're they have to be on the defensive. They
Yeah.
have to have a thick, more than a thick skin. They need to, and you can't sit there and weigh every single word you're saying
No.
because that's not authentic either. They are under attack,
Yeah.
and they are not to blame.
Yeah.
They
You're
go in
right.
every day and serve those kids within whatever freaking system they've been given to do
Yeah.
it with. To fight against, you're supposed to fight against at the same time that you're
Yeah.
trying to serve all these kids. Get
Right.
real. I
And follow
feel,
the rules.
and I do feel guilt for not doing that for them now. And so maybe
Yeah.
this is my way of doing that for them now, because it's so wrong. It's the
Yeah.
system that needs to continually change and grow and
And it's not.
serve the children. And it's not looking good either.
No, I feel like it's shrinking.
It's not looking good right now. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Now let's pack up this week's episode in the trunk.
Ride shotgun and be a part of our adventure by clicking on the plus sign to subscribe and follow our show. This will help our ratings and, more importantly, inspire us to keep creating fun and engaging content. We would love to hear from you in the comment sections or email us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. Use the fast track lane by sharing episodes with friends, family, and anyone who would like to join us on a road trip through retirement.
Be sure to check the show notes for links and contact information. Retired is chauffeured by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Buckle up and tune in next week so that you won't miss your chance to join the Retired Road Trip.